Today's video is I wanted to talk about how I got into reading tarot. So this I'm going to tell you about my first time getting my cards read. I believe that was somewhere in 20 maybe 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. I started really stepping back when it came to my relationship because I was starting to see patterns, and I was so confused because I was stuck in this cycle of whoever whoever my husband showed me how he was in the beginning, it wasn't who he really was. And looking back now, it makes sense why he was like kind of rushing through everything, getting engaged, getting married, wanting to start kids immediately. And because I met him when I was 16 years old, and we got married when I turned 18. 6 months after I turned, yeah, 6 months after I turned 18, I delivered our first baby. And then he started slowly showing his real self, and I was definitely questioning, whether I bit off more than I could chew. So fast forward, I already have all my kids, and I've already noticed this pattern of like chaos, 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 you know, 6 months out of the year. And then I would pull my energy back because I didn't know how to deal with all his negativity. And, he started drinking a lot. I mean, he was always a drinker. He claims he was raised that way. Men go to work, and when they get off work, they're entitled to have a few beers. Those few beers turn into more beers, and so on and so forth. So I didn't like associating with him whenever he was drinking. I didn't care to carry a conversation with him. I would try to avoid him as much as I could because, to be honest, it just turned me off. There's just nothing appealing about a drunk person, okay? And then depending on whatever they want to talk about, you know, I never really knew if he was really wanting to have discussions, random discussions, nothing like too serious, or if it was just a way to like pick a fight because, as soon as I didn't agree with whatever topic he's talking about, I have a different opinion than his. Now we're in an argument, but he's a little aggressive because he's been drinking. So I would pull back my energy in those moments, and then he would pretend to be a decent, kind person. But like it wouldn't last. It'd probably last for like 2 minutes. I mean, 2 minutes, 2 months at best. And then he would slowly, drift back into his toxic mindset. So, me and a friend, she was at the time going through situationship issues, and we talked about getting our cards read. But in that town, nobody reads cards. The town is, super religious. And so we would have to drive an hour and 30 minutes out of town into like a bigger city. And so we found a tarot reader that does readings out of a shop. So we did. We planned a day. It was on a Friday. And we were like, okay, we're going to go get our cards read. We didn't tell nobody. We were all excited. So we get there, and she tells me to go first. And it's a man. And so I go sit down with him, and he tells me to shuffle the cards first, and then he pulls them. And he asks me he asked me if there was like any specific questions that I wanted him to answer. And I said, no, I was just, curious. I didn't want to like tell him my problems, anything like that, because, every person when they get a tarot reading for the first time, everybody's suspicious. That's just the natural, response. So I didn't want to give him no information. He didn't even know my name because we didn't even have to have an appointment. It was just walk-ins. And I told him no, I just wanted, whatever comes up in the cards for him to just, tell me whatever messages are in the cards. So he pulls them and he starts telling me that I'm stuck in a toxic cycle, that the person that I'm with has the ability to consistently make me fall in love with him, which I was already aware of that because I kept feeling like I was stuck in this cycle and I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't understand it, like, and I was trying to figure out, is this going to be like the rest of our relationship? You know what I mean? Where it's chaotic for 6 months at a time, and then he's, sweet to me for 2 months, and then after those 2 months, then another 6 months of hell, and that's just year after year after year. And to hear the tarot reader tell me that, he just looked, he had this sadness in his eyes when he was telling me, and I just remember feeling like well, I mean, I was grateful for the reading because everything else that he said, it was all um, accurate about my life and what I was going through. And at the end of the reading, I asked him, you know, how much for the reading, and he told me that it was a donation. It was whatever I felt the reading was worth. So I left that day feeling like I got the clarity that I wanted. And I just remember holding on to that feeling. And I knew that one day I would want to pass that same feeling on to other people, especially when you're going through something in your relationship that feels so confusing and just off, and you just can't really put your finger on what exactly is going on in your relationship. I knew that I wanted to be in that same position as how that reader made me feel. So fast forward to 2015, we moved out of that small town into a bigger city. And the first thing I did was I ordered myself a tarot deck online. I got it in secret, unwrapped it, and I started learning how to read it, how to read cards, and I started meditating to become more grounded because there's a little process everybody goes through. And all readers are different. How I read is I feel the energy of the person I'm connecting with, that I'm doing a reading on. So even though I know the basis of each card meaning, it's still, I go off of that plus what I'm feeling when I'm looking at each card. And that's how I'm able to do readings. And so I would say probably like 3 years, 3 years into my reading, my best friend, her boss happened to be doing tarot as well. Like, she was learning as well. And I never met her boss, but her boss, she let her boss know that I was also doing readings. So she kind of fixed it so that we could practice on each other because we had never met each other. We lived in two different cities, and that became a way of how we practiced doing tarot readings. And we were both always very intuitive and accurate when we were reading for each other. And then I started, of course, offering other free readings to strangers. I would post on Craigslist, offering free readings to, get more feedback. And so, yeah, so that's how I got into tarot. And I've been wanting to start a tarot channel for so long, but life be lifing. And this time I'm just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to post and see how I could be of service to you guys. So if anybody wants any personal readings, My information is in the bio. I'm going to start trying to put the information underneath each video though that I post. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.